from Mercy Corps. He joins me now from Jordan. Thank you very much, Kieren, for taking the time to speak to us. We have seen, our viewers have seen here on the show, some truly apocalyptic images. Just give us a sense of what you're hearing in terms of the scale of the devastation on the ground from your teams.
Yeah, thanks, Isa. It's an extremely difficult and complex situation in northwest Syria, which is a very isolated and fragmented part of the country. We've struggled the last few days mostly with communications, but we have spoken to our teams on the ground, and sadly, for many of them have been affected by the earthquake. Thankfully, all of them are safe, but a number of their families have been killed tragically in this. They've been out and about in the communities over the last couple of days, and they've spoken about being with families, being with people who are standing next to rubble, hearing the voices of the relatives under that rubble, but simply not being able to do anything about it. There isn't the infrastructure, there isn't the machinery or the expertise really, as we've seen in other parts of the region responding to the crisis. So it's truly desperate and truly dire and extremely tragic.
Yeah, and of course, your focus is on the Idlib area, northwest, correct? I think you said northwest of Syria. I mean, it's a desperate situation, Kieren, as you were saying, you know, that's only been made worse by these 12 years of civil war. Just talk to us about what teams do not have right now. I mean, equipment to clear rubble, you're talking there, the medicine, aid, shelter, any help with recovery. What is needed right now?
Yes, so our teams, I mean, personally, they've been traumatized. So you're dealing with traumatized people trying to help everybody else. And thankfully, most of our team have come back together. But we have the manpower, we have the people on the ground, but what we need are resources. We're going to need a significant amount of resources over the coming days and weeks around shelter, as you say. The infrastructure, particularly around water, is concerning. We provide water to 98 camps of people who are already displaced from the conflict. Some of those water sources have been contaminated because the infrastructure is broken, soil has leaked into that. So clean water is one thing. We also have pre-positioned kits that we've been giving out to people, things like mattresses, tents, jerry cans, blankets. However, there's only a finite amount of these things that we have pre-positioned. We are going to need more in the coming days and weeks, and it's a concern about being able to access those in the long term.
And the main route, from what I understand, into Syria, that, of course, had been affected by the earthquake. In the last few hours, our team Weber confirmed that route is now open. In terms of getting aid in, when, how quickly, how soon, how much? Give us a sense of numbers here, Kieren.
So, I mean, there are 4 million people already in need in northwest Syria. I mean, it's an incredible amount of people for the last 12 years who've been desperate. This recent shock has put them in an even more dire situation than we can possibly even imagine. So, you know, 4 million people who are heavily reliant on humanitarian aid on a daily basis, and now we're responding to this shock as well. So those supply routes that do come through, we need them to stay open. We need the trucks to keep rolling. And that's not just with the UN or the humanitarian sector. We also need the commercial sector to be running as well. We need to be able to go to vendors, to go to suppliers, buy the tents, buy the equipment so that we can start distributing more and more. So we need that channel to be functioning simply to respond. We, as I said, work in 98 camps. We also need to reach out to about 136 communities on top of that. A lot of people affected by the earthquake were living in regular structures, apartment blocks, houses, and they're the ones that have collapsed. And therefore, we're dealing with more displaced people than we ever have before.
More displaced, more people in need of shelters, like you said, for 4.1 million people already going hungry, not just in northwest Syria, but also because of, like you mentioned, food insecurity worsened by the war in Ukraine. Let me ask you this. We heard from the representative of Syria today to the UN, who said that sanctions from the US and EU on Syria are preventing airplanes and cargo full of aid and humanitarian assistance from reaching those in need. What do you say to that? Are you seeing this?
I mean, I think Syria has been a highly politicized conflict for the last 12 years. And as humanitarian organizations, I think we just call on all parties to prioritize people above all else and make sure that
Yeah.
we can access them in the best way and most effective way possible. I think that needs to be our priority, and it applies to everybody. We need to put that first.
Indeed. And Kieren, do keep us posted on how you get on. We wish you, of course, and your team all the best of luck. Appreciate it, Kieren. Kieren Barnes there.
Thanks, Isa.
Well, for information on how to help earthquake survivors, go to cnn.com/impact. You'll find a list of organizations working on rescue and relief efforts. Again, that is cnn.com/impact. The details are all there for you.